Hey everyone, and welcome to Presenting Presentations, a presentation about presentations. I'm Brian Satalino, and I'll be using really bad clip art throughout this slideshow. First though, I'd like to take the opportunity to quickly state that in your project, you'll be building a video presentation. That can be near or pretty far from the in-person variety. This lecture will be focused on using video to showcase your work. So let's start with asking ourselves what a presentation is exactly. Sure, it's often someone talking and showing pictures that relate to what they're saying. Technically correct, but not really specific enough. Sharing knowledge while using visual aids. Yep, this too. We're getting more specific while looping in the concept of an audience, which is great. Storytelling. And this is what I really want to focus on. It's probably the best way to think about your video presentation. You'll be telling the story of your experience in building your ideas and brands. While some forms of presenting information might have other goals, like a designer showing progress comps and seeking feedback from a client, the goal here is to showcase your finished work and the journey that led you there. It's also worth noting that we're not treating this presentation like a product pitch or a commercial for your business, just the story of your group's progress and process. Now that we know we'll be focused on storytelling, let's take a look at the format or structure that you'll be using to build your video presentation. So a basic story has three parts: a beginning, a middle, and an end. In your case, your story will have a definition of a problem. It will show your step-by-step process in figuring out how to solve that problem. And it will show all of your teammates' end products. In other words, your final design deliverables, one designer at a time. Let's zoom in on each of these and figure out the best way to tell your story. Okay, so what is the problem again? It's actually really helpful to dig up the assignment wording for help here. It's a good place to start. This is from the project overview page on your Canvas course, and I'm not going to be reading it here, but we can all agree that it has something to do with the pandemic and food. An important thing to note is that you're really actually addressing a couple different problems, one from the business's point of view and the other from a customer's point of view. So to set the stage, here's a quick example of an intro or maybe an overview of the problems you're outlining. Many businesses and people are trying to figure out what normalcy is during the COVID-19 pandemic. Businesses like restaurants are struggling to make ends meet, and many people are trying to maintain mental health while existing in a smaller, socially distant world. And that's the coronavirus, in case you were wondering. So this is a different approach, coming from the customer's perspective. Meet Michael. He's a single working from home father of two small children, also at home. Life is exponentially harder, and Michael is finding it difficult to get to the grocery store and shop for healthy food to feed his family. This is a good opportunity to call back to your user personas. This entree into the problem you're seeking to solve adds some humanity to the mix and will help your audience have empathy for your customers. Next up, we'll talk about the process section. This is how you'll tee up your finished design work and show all of that group work that you were able to pull off. Some of what you should probably show in this section are your research. Can you outline the research that informed your project? Perhaps it was a quote from our experts panel that you found particularly useful, or research into your potential customers. You should also include your user personas here. Remember, these probably need to be redesigned and perhaps even rewritten. Try to make them feel polished and professional. Maybe part of your research was looking into other companies that perform similar services or have a similar product. Outline 2 or 3 of them to provide context and talk about how this research helped you find your company's niche. You'll want to include some of your brainstorming results. Here you can show the potential names and how you came up with them. You can show concept sketches. You can even show some other ideas that you were playing around with that solve the same problem but in a different way. And the last part of the process section of your presentation will be focused on where you landed. This is where you'll outline your idea. What is it? How does it work? You can talk about the deliverables you and your group decided upon and what your rationale was that you used for making those decisions. You could also show some group deliverables here, but be careful of showing too many undesigned images like slide after slide after slide of blank mock-ups. Instead, you could show symbols for the deliverables your team decided on, or simply mention them rather than show visuals. One important point to remember is that the process section should have a not too designed look. This is all group work and it can't be too branded in any one direction. And also an important part of this section is to show how your app or website works. Many of you have ordering processes that could be talked about here, and the best way to explain that is to walk us through a use case scenario. Tell us how one of your customers would use your service or product. This is a great place to showcase some of your wireframing process. The last chunk of our format will be your products. This section will be where each one of you shows your individual branding work, one at a time. You'll probably want to keep these mini presentations somewhat standardized. Decide on an order in which to show your work and make sure everyone in your group is following that order. A solid example for the order in which you could show your work might be your logo, your responsive and/or alternate logos, your color palette, any patterns or visual motifs, your product and packaging mockups built in Dimension or in Photoshop. You might want to include a couple different views of these to be able to zoom in on type and design elements. You can show your digital and interactive deliverables like the website, mobile website, or app. You should strongly consider showing some animation here, perhaps someone using the app, or transitions, or micro animations as well. You can also show all of the other ancillary deliverables that you've generated as well, like ad campaigns, custom utensils, uniforms, anything else. And your mileage may vary on this, but I always find it useful to end on the logo. It bookends the presentation and lets the viewers know that your part is wrapped up. So what's the best way to build this video presentation? I'm going to give you a few solid pointers and outline some options for you to choose from. Use Google Slides to sketch your presentation. Google Slides is a great way to build out the content for your presentation and outline how it will work. Everyone can work on it at the same time, and think of it like a wireframe or prototype for your video. Make sure all of your digital assets live in a shared folder somewhere. This is crucial and the reason why someone on your team is the manager for all this stuff. Don't use templates. I can't say this enough. You are all designers, so please take this opportunity to practice designing and not relying on what's built into the software you're using for your presentation. So what's a good workflow to use to build this presentation? I'm going to give you a couple, but there are many others. So here's option one. You can start in PowerPoint or Keynote. Both have rich transitions and a lot more control than Google Slides, and you can also easily include video files. Once that presentation is built, you'll want to record your audio while you're mock presenting. This will help you nail the timing for syncing the video and audio up later. If you recorded audio first, it's much harder to sync everything up. You can use GarageBand, your phone, or any other recording software to make this happen. After the audio is all set, you can record your presentation directly from your screen. Play the audio in the background so that the timing and transitions match up. I like stitching everything together with iMovie. It's a pretty basic program that allows you to mess with the audio and the visuals at the same time. The second workflow we'll look at is using iMovie almost entirely to pull everything together. The first thing you want to do after sketching your presentation in slides is to assemble all of the content. Next, you can use InDesign, which has superior type control, or something like Illustrator to design your individual slides. One InDesign document can contain all of your slides in the form of pages. Omit slides with video at this point. They can be placed later. After everything is designed, you can export each page as an individual image file, like a JPEG or a PNG. Record your voice over audio, and one nice feature of iMovie is that you can input images, sound files, and other video assets to stitch together. You can also edit out your ums, uhs, and likes that were left in the recording. It's pretty intuitive, yet limited software. Easy to learn and enough power for our purposes. There are many ways you can build your presentation, and other workflows might include prototyping software like XD or InVision Studio. As a group, you should really decide what option works best for you. Whatever you end up using, just be consistent. I'm going to leave you with a few tips and tricks for making your presentation the best it can be. Record your voice under a blanket in your closet. And a hat tip to Nathan for this one. Your mic on your computer, headphones, or phone will naturally pick up a lot of background noise, and it will pick up the echoes of your voice in most rooms. The result will be just okay, and you can only do so much processing with software to fix it. A good solution is to go into a closet or small room and cover yourself with a blanket. That will kill any reverb that happens when the sound on your voice bounces all over the walls. Show, don't tell. What do I mean by this? And basically, let the images and videos that you're putting in your presentation do all the heavy lifting. Don't overload the viewer with a lot of text. Really, for this video, you should probably have a very minimal amount. Don't spend too long on any given slide. I see this a lot where the presenter stalls out and talks for an extended period of time over the same slide, and this is a problem of pacing. For example, you might tell us everything about your product during that first photo and then have nothing to say for the next 4 product shots in the presentation. This can be pretty awkward and it's somewhat unpleasant for the viewer. Use music. Adding music to your video can really make it seem much more legitimate. And I'm talking about like kind of a background or bed music. These videos will feel a bit more fleshed out and as a result feel more polished. Remember, you'll probably have to lower the volume enough to mix your vocals in well, which you can do in iMovie very easily. Be creative. You want your presentation to be memorable. The best way to do that is to be creative and think about how you engage your audience. Is your concept humorous and fun? Well, bring a little bit of that into your presentation. Is your concept earnest and altruistic? Find a way to help people be inspired by your project. You really want to do your best to sell your ideas to your audience. So that concludes our lecture on presentations. Thanks for watching. I want to quickly credit Donna Spencer's book, Presenting Design Work from A Book Apart, as well as the Clip Art Library for being invaluable resources when putting this all together.